Ripon College community, and thank you for being here tonight to discuss an extremely important and increasingly relevant topic to our country. The Student Advisory Board of the Center for Politics and the People is proud to host the event Immigration and Citizenship After COVID-19 with Enrique Morones. Here's a brief background into his work. Enrique Morones is a lifelong human rights activist born in San Diego to Mexican parents who instilled in him a deep love for Mexico, spiritual faith, and social justice. His driving force is the passage, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink," from Matthew. Morones has a history of firsts. In 1998, he was the first person to be granted dual nationality with Mexico, the first two-term president of the San Diego County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the first vice president of Latino and diversity marketing in Major League Sports with the San Diego Padres, the founder of House of Mexico, and the founder of Border Angels, a nonprofit volunteer group with more than 50,000 followers. As a result of his work in defense of migrants' rights, he has been featured on numerous media outlets such as NBC, CNN, CBS, BBC, ABC, NPR, Univision, The Washington Post, New York Times, and countless other media. He is a published author of The Power of One, The Border Angel Story, and has been in 6 feature films. He has hosted 2 radio shows and 4 podcasts. Enrique is frequently invited as a guest lecturer in all 50 states and has debated Bill O'Reilly, Larry King, Tucker Carlson, Dan Stein, Joe Arpaio, and more. Morones promotes the truth about the migrant community and border realities. As founder of Gente Unida, a human rights border coalition in April of 2005, he led the national effort against the vigilante Minutemen, soundly shutting them down. Enrique also led a round-trip national car caravan from San Diego to DC asking for humane immigration reform, helping spark the massive pro-immigrant marches in the spring of 2006. He is recognized as one of the 100 most influential Latinos in the United States by Hispanic Businessman magazine. Other recognitions include being the Frontline Human Rights International awardee from Ireland for his lifelong dedication to human rights. In 2009, he received Mexico's National Human Rights Award presented by Mexican President Felipe Calderon, the 2010 California Spirit Award from the USA, presented by Senator Gil Cedillo, and the Bishop Buddy Alumni Award presented by the University of San Diego. He has BS in International Marketing from SDSU, an MS in Executive Leadership from USD, and an honorary PhD from Mexico's Human Rights Commission.
Enrique Morones will be speaking tonight on how the future of the U.S. immigration policy will change after the COVID-19 pandemic. In late May, the United States will begin the process of removing Title 42, former President Trump's policy that led to the deportation of hundreds of thousands of migrants. This decision by the Biden administration has been met with controversy and has led to many conversations about how citizenship and immigration in the United States could be changed. This discussion will be moderated by 3 students from the Student Advisory Board of the Center for Politics and the People. My name is Alicia, and I am a senior from Janesville, Wisconsin. I am majoring in politics and government.
My name is Peyton, and I'm a senior from Amer, Wisconsin, with double majors in English and politics and government.
My name is Maite, and I'm a junior from Round Lake, Illinois, and I'm majoring in politics and government as well. So thank you to everyone who has tuned in so far. As a reminder, we will open up for discussion for a Q&A for the last 15 minutes of the event. So please send any questions you might have through Zoom chat function on your screens. Thank you, Enrique, for being here tonight, and we are thankful to hear your thoughts on the topic.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be speaking to your college or university once again. I know I've met Mike and some other people before, so I'm glad to be back in Wisconsin. I was mentioning before we started that one of the coldest days I've ever had in my life, being a person born in San Diego, California, where today is a really bad weather day. I had to actually wear a long sleeve t-shirt today and shorts because it's 70 degrees. That's pretty cold out here. Anyways, was actually in Madison, Wisconsin. During that caravan that was mentioned, we stopped in 40 cities across the country, and we left on February 2nd and came back on February 28th. So I thought Wisconsin, DC, all these places, February, this could be nice, spring. And it was freezing. It was absolutely freezing. And I understand you had some snow yesterday. So I'm glad to be back, and it's a very important topic, and I congratulate you all. I know that most of you or some of you are graduating this year, so that's an exciting time. So as mentioned, Title 42. Title 42 is what that controversial, the way it was described, bill is, and it was something that was passed by the previous administration. And for those of you that might not know what it was that as people are crossing the border asking for asylum, which is an international law, they were being sent back. If they were crossing from Mexico to the United States, that doesn't mean that they're from Mexico. It means they were crossing from Mexico. Most actually weren't from Mexico. They were from Central America or Haiti or other parts of the world. Well, what would happen under the previous administration, and sadly, it was stopped, and sadly, it started up again under this administration, they would be sent back to Mexico, even if they weren't Mexican. And it was supposedly because of COVID-19. And I say supposedly because a lot of us suspect the timing of it, the people that were being sent back, and think there was much more to it than that. Well, President Biden said that on May 23rd of this, in a month or so, they're going to rescind Title 42. So that's going to stop. But President Biden also said on January 20th, the first day of the inauguration, that within 100 days, he was going to have humane immigration reform. That's not unique to President Biden. Presidents, with the exception of the previous administration, presidents on both sides of the aisle have said similar things. We're going to have humane immigration reform, and neither side has done it. Neither side has done it. President Obama, whom I had the honor and privilege of serving as an advisor, he had planned to pass humane immigration reform. And as we all know, that didn't happen. He only had 2 years in his 8 years as president that he could have done it, but he had a lot to deal with, and he should have still passed it, but he didn't. I wish he would have, but he was dealing with the healthcare crisis, the financial crisis, the automobile industry, Iraq. He had a lot on his plate. And so that didn't happen, but then he did pass the DREAM Act with an executive order towards the end of his term. So let's get to what is taking place right now. I have lectured, as was mentioned, in all 50 states. And the state I lecture in the most after California is actually Wisconsin. Because Wisconsin, as you all know, I know that some of you aren't from Wisconsin, but is a state where there's lots of migration. You have lots of migration, or people that have migrated there from Germany and from other parts of the world, maybe your great grandparents or your grandparents, or maybe even yourself. So there's a lot of migration in Wisconsin, as there is in many parts of the United States. And one of the things that I always like to clarify is that the United States is not just a country of immigrants. I'm not an immigrant, for example. I'm Mexican, 100% Mexican, and we never crossed the border. As you've heard the expression, the border crossed us. In 1846, the United States invaded Mexico and stole half the territory. So California, Texas, Colorado, Arizona, parts of Utah, and so forth, the Southwest United States was stolen from Mexico. So what we see in the news every single day, I don't know if you can see that the fact that I support Ukraine with one of the things that I have behind me here. What's happening right now with Russia invading Ukraine, trying to steal parts of Ukraine or all of Ukraine, I, as a Mexican, know exactly what that's like. It was wrong to do it to Mexico back then, and it's wrong to do it to Ukraine right now. So we are all aware of what's happening. We all see it in the news. And one of the things that's very disturbing to me as a human rights activist is the discrimination that's taking place. All of us, or most of us, saw what happened a little less than a year ago when the U.S. Border Patrol was on horseback whipping Haitians that were trying to cross into the United States. Haiti is the poorest country in the Americas, the poorest. They've had a lot of natural disasters, their president was assassinated, et cetera, et cetera. So there's been a migration of Haitians, especially the last several years, to other parts of the world. First, they went to Brazil to work there during the Olympics. After the Olympics were over, they started working through South America, Central America. Many settled in Mexico. Many have married into Mexican wives or husbands. And a lot of them, their goal is to come into the United States. Some of them have. but they're being discriminated against, as are Mexicans, El Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Hondurans, etc. And that is absolutely wrong, because as I said, asylum is an international law, and it should be respected. And it's not being respected here in the U.S. Both sides of the aisle have not respected it, especially the previous administration, but we're seeing it again today. So to fast track to what is happening today, 7 weeks ago or so, Russia invades Ukraine. And the very first full day of that, I, as the founder of the House of Mexico, went to the House of Mexico are these cottages that are in Balboa Park. Balboa Park here in San Diego is a treasure. It's the second largest park in the United States after Central Park. The most famous thing we have in Balboa Park is the San Diego Zoo, which is the biggest zoo in the world. One of the reasons we could have such a beautiful park and the zoo is because of the weather. We know what the weather is going to be all the time. So it's a lot easier to take care of the animals, not expecting like a snowstorm or something. Anyways, so in the park, there's these international cottages from various countries. There was not a House of Mexico, and I couldn't believe it. So I worked on having a House of Mexico. Right now we have half a house. We still don't have our own house. But Ukraine's been there for about 40 years. They've had a house for about 40 years. So the first full day of the invasion, I went to the House of Ukraine, and some people recognized me. Thank you for being here, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, why don't you say a few words? So I did. And I told them that. I said, as a Mexican, I know what it's like to be invaded. And it's absolutely wrong. I proudly stand with Ukraine, and I do. I was just in the news just yesterday. I've been in the local news, like local stations, national, CNN, and so forth, talking about this. And what I say is, I'm so glad the Ukrainians are, being allowed to come through. That's great. They have nothing to do with why others aren't being allowed to come through. It's not, not them. But how come the others aren't being allowed to come through? So a few weeks after the invasion, the first Ukrainian family that we know of showed up in Tijuana. Tijuana is right across the border from San Diego. I live in downtown San Diego. If I get in my car and drive to Tijuana, and there's really not a lot of traffic in San Diego, like Los Angeles or something like that. So if I drive down to Tijuana, there's no traffic, I could be in Tijuana in 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, I could be from right here, San Diego, downtown, near the ballpark where the Padres play, and drive to Tijuana. I'm there in 15 minutes. So the first people that we know of showed up in Tijuana. It was a woman named Sophia with her 3 children. I think there were 3 girls. And she comes out in the news that she was applying for asylum. And CBP, which is Customs and Border Patrol, they turned her away. Title 42. No, you can't come in. And I said, when I saw that, I was shocked when I saw that took place. I said, here she is, light skin, clear eyes, blonde hair, etc. I said, I guarantee within a week, that person and her kids are going to be able to get in. Well, I was wrong. Well, not really wrong, because it was true. But I meant that within 4 or 5 days, well, it only took 12 hours. Within 12 hours, she was allowed into San Diego with her children. I'm glad she was. But how about these other people that have been waiting there literally for 2 years, 3 years? And they've been waiting, not in shelters necessarily, outdoors. And even though we don't have the same weather, to live outdoors, a houseless person. And I've been there many times, and you see the families gathered around, or the mom with the children that maybe don't have any relatives with them. And I said, this is heartbreaking, and that they can't get it across the border. They should be able to get across the border. So the president of Mexico, whom I compare a lot to the previous guy here in San Diego, or here in the United States, Trump, AMLO, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and his initials are AMLO, so we call him AMLO. I think he's been a total disaster. He promised that he was going to have humane policies, that he was the president of the people, and so forth. I know him. I know him personally. I've known him for about 20 years. And no, he hasn't done that. He hasn't done that. So he agreed under the previous administration that the United States could send people back to Mexico, even if they weren't Mexican. I go, what are you thinking? First of all, don't send them back. Secondly, why are they sending Haitians or El Salvadorians to Mexico? But they agreed to do that under his watch. And so I was really upset. I've been really upset and still am. So these people that were camping out, 2,500, 3,000 or so, one morning, only about 5 weeks, it was before the invasion actually. One morning, maybe a week before the invasion, in Tijuana, they came in with bulldozers and all this equipment and cleared that area out. I know that there's the houseless situation in Wisconsin like there is all over the world, but it's not as bad as it is here in San Diego. Because in San Diego, like Tijuana, the weather is so good, it draws people because even if they're outdoors, it's not going to be snowing and so forth, but it's still a horrific situation. So I said, how could they do that to people? These people lost their cell phones, their few possessions, etc. Well, disease, we've got to be careful. It doesn't look good. About a week later or so, 10 days, the Ukrainians started coming. I was just at the border yesterday. There's Ukrainians on both sides. They have brand new tents. They're in the same type of situation as the people from Latin America, but they have an area that's really, really clean. They're getting all these services. They're being told, tomorrow you'll be able to cross. Today you're crossing. That's not happening with the rest of the people. And I said, it's not fair. It's not right. And I've come out saying that. And once again, it's not the Ukrainians' fault. I'm glad they're being able to cross, but how come the Russians or Guatemalans can't cross? So one of the things that I always like to portray images. So, for people that maybe don't get it or whatever. And that image that I like to portray, which is a sad one, is we saw the border patrol on the Texas border whipping the Haitians. And I have said over and over, I can't even imagine that image where they're whipping Ukrainians. You can't imagine that. There's no way you can imagine that happening, that the border patrol will be whipping, white people with blue eyes, blonde hair, Ukrainians. And that's nothing new. When I was in professional baseball, we didn't have customs and border patrol back then. Things were called different. And the director of immigration was a woman named Doris Meisner. And a nice lady, and she came to San Diego. We had a press conference about something, and she said, Enrique, I want to congratulate you for your work about going out to the desert and putting water out there so people don't die and so on and so forth. And then she said, aren't you going to congratulate me that under the Clinton administration, we started Operation Gatekeeper? Operation Gatekeeper is essentially the wall between the United States and Mexico. That started in 1994. The U.S. Mexican border is 2,000 miles. The Canadian U.S. border is 3,000. The Mexican U.S. is 2,000. A third of that border has a wall, about 700 miles. Trump didn't really add any more wall. He made part of the wall taller, but that was about it. That adds about 30 seconds to the jumping over the wall. But anyways, so Madam Commissioner Meisner said, aren't you going to congratulate us for Operation Gatekeeper? And it was a similar statement that I made. I said, Madam Commissioner, why would I congratulate you for setting up a wall that's killing people? Because the goal of the wall was so that people wouldn't cross. They'd be forced to cross in real dangerous areas like the desert, the mountains, the ocean. And I said, Commissioner, there's people dying every day because of that wall. So I said, if the wall was with Canada and those were Canadians dying, I guarantee you would have shut down Operation Gatekeeper right away. So Mrs. Meisner said, Enrique, are you implying racism? And I said, Madam Commissioner, let me make this perfectly clear. I'm not implying it. I'm stating it. The same thing. If those people dying, closer to you guys in Wisconsin there, were Canadian, they would have changed the policy. And we see this day in and day out. Black Lives Matter, the Asians being attacked, the Muslims being attacked, etc. It's I support all of those communities, the Muslims, the gay community, the Haitian community. I support them all, the Ukrainian. But it's not a matter of just supporting them. It's a matter of doing something about it. So we, with Gente Unida, one of the things that we do, as a matter of fact, I was just talking to her, I saw her today. is and then if you look on our website, genteunidasd.net, you can see some of it. One of the things that we do is we do dances with the children, because if you can bring down the stress level of the children, it's something that at least distracts them from what's going on right now. And we've been doing it for a while. And the person that leads it is the person that I met with today. Her name is Ari Jonavar. She's somebody that you guys should invite one of these days. She is from Iran. She came from Iran, and she came as an unaccompanied minor when she was 14 years old. Didn't speak any English. They speak Farsi in Iran. So here she is by herself. Her parents had to go back to Iran because her other sister was there. And she had to get out of Iran or she would have been killed. They had the Republican Guard back then, very strict, sort of like the Taliban. And so she was able to escape. She got a visa to the United States, didn't speak English, landed in New Mexico, and eventually she worked her way across to California. During that journey, she met her husband, Brian, really nice guy, a Quaker guy. And of course, I didn't know anything about them. And then one day in Tijuana, in the shelters, I heard about this woman that was leading these dances for the children. And I said, this is before the pandemic. And I said, oh, I want to meet this woman. And I met her and I said, oh, you've got to be part of Gente Unida. And she is. She's our vice president. And the dancing that she does is so moving. Like if she's dancing with Haitian children, for example, she'll have Haitian music and she'll make sure that there's a translator that can talk to them in Creole, which is the main language there, etc. And she's doing it with the Afghans, not right now with Ramadan going on, but she does it with the Afghans. She does it with the people in Tijuana, for example, which are predominantly Latino. There's a school here in San Diego for Ukrainians. We're going to be doing it there. And those children that are in the school there, they've arrived. Their parents came a while ago, so they're not escaping the invasion, but they have relatives back there, so they can pick up how their parents are nervous, their relatives, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very important to treat the children with kindness. I've always said that a society is judged on how we treat our children. She leaves Sunday for Europe, and she's going to be doing the dances over there with Ukrainians and other refugees in different parts of Europe. And she just wrote a book. It's called A Girl Called Rumi. It's about the poet from the 12th century, Rumi. Something I strongly recommend. Again, you can look on our website and find out these types of some more about this type of thing. So one of the things that we're doing, which is very important, is because of my health, I cannot go to the desert very much and put water like I used to when I was the executive director of Border Angels for 33 years. In April of 2019, I announced I'm going to retire at the end of the year because it'll be 33 years. And it's very important for me to put all my energy in the 2020 election. So I retired in November of 2019, and 2020, I just focused on the election. And I have a podcast, and I had celebrities and very influential people on the podcast. And the message was, get out and vote, get out and vote. Well, the election turned out like some of us hoped. And this year, after that, our focus has been the migrant children. And to me, that's a good monitor, how the children are being treated. And no matter how you feel about the issue, if you're on the right or the left of the issue, the children have no fault in this at all. So that's why we do so many things with the children, and we're very, very active with them. So Wisconsin is very aware of this. And one of the persons that was mentioned in the people I've debated, because I've debated them all, literally all of them, all the Fox News people and so on and so forth, is Dan Stein. Dan Stein is not a Fox guy. Dan Stein is a guy of German ancestry, and he's the president of a hate group. It's classified as a hate group by the Anti-Defamation League, by the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's called FAIR, F-A-I-R, the Federation of American Immigration Reform. And they're a right-wing group. They use language like illegal aliens, wetbacks, and stuff like that. Hate words lead to hate actions. And he's out there promoting all these really, all the migrants, they bring disease, they're criminals, all that type of nonsense. And I've debated him around 20 times, several times in Wisconsin, because I have been invited by the University of Wisconsin, at least 3 of their schools there, to debate him. And what's really great about the debates is, like right now, I would imagine, the people, watching are pretty supportive of the things that I do. Not everybody, but, pretty supportive. But so when I've gone to Wisconsin to speak, for example, the people that come are people that are in general supportive. But if it's a debate, well, you're gonna have people supportive of the other person too. So I've done 3 debates with him in Wisconsin. And in a normal situation is we have, let's say, 1,000 students. Well, about 700 of the students, 650 or so, they agree with my point of view on immigration. So let's say 650. About 100 agree with Dan Stein's point of view on immigration. He's anti-immigration and all that. So there's 300 or so, or do the math, 250, whatever it is, that have not made a decision. Well, that's who I'm talking to. When I do the debate or when I do the Fox shows, that's who I'm talking to. Because the people that are already on my side of the issue or on his, they're pretty much entrenched in their position. But the people that are not on either side, that's who I like to talk to. So when I've done these debates, at the end, we always do a poll like, okay, you've heard these 2 guys talk. How many agree with Enrique? And then I'll have easily 800 people raise their hand. So the overwhelming majority. So I've gained 150 people of the undecideds or whatever. How many people agree with Dan Stein? He usually has about the same number, maybe a little bit more. And then there's about 100 that haven't made up their mind. And that's why it's important to speak out, not to be silent. When there's things that are wrong, that are going on that are wrong, you got to speak up. And what happened in the elections of the previous administration was that people thought for sure they knew what was going to happen, and they didn't vote. So, there's another election coming up in November. It's important that we get out there once again. Women's rights are important, women's rights to choose. The Supreme Court has shifted to the right. And a lot of these things that are happening are because people didn't get out and vote for the presidential election the previous one. And that person placed people strategically, and now we're paying the price. And that's not unique to the U.S. We have seen this this turn to the right in many countries, in Brazil, in Hungary. Right now, in France, there's an election. In France, an election, Macron, the current president that most of you are familiar with, you've seen him in the news. Nice guy, he's very similar policies as the United States. And then the person that's opposing him, her name is Le Pen. She's a right winger. She's really horrible, like Nazi in all seriousness. I mean, she's really extreme. Look it up. And she's got a chance to win. And this is France. That would be so dangerous, because France, Germany, Italy, Spain, those are like the main countries, influencers in Europe. England, and we can't allow that to happen. I mean, what can we do? Just show support, making sure that the French people make the decision and get out and vote. So this is happening locally. It's happened in Wisconsin. It's happened all across the country. It's happened in different parts of the world. So we can make a big difference. One of the stories that I often share, and I'll share it now, is maybe my favorite story, is the story of a man walking along the beach. And he's with his son. And as he's walking along the beach, his son is picking up these starfish and he's throwing them into the ocean. So the father says to the son, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm picking up these starfish and throwing them into the ocean." And the father says, "Yeah, I can see that, son, but why are you doing that?" And he goes, "Dad, it is so hot out here. These starfish are dying. The sun is so bright and the tide has gone in." And the father says, "Yes, son, but there's thousands of starfish. What you do doesn't make any difference." And the little boy picks up a starfish and he says, "It'll make a difference to this one." That's the power of one. That starfish could be Malala. It could be Greta Thunberg. It could be somebody that's going to make a huge difference. So the power of one is something that I always believe in. And the person that actually told me that story after I had heard it and used it before was Mahatma Gandhi's grandson. He came to the University of San Diego, which is where I studied, the Catholic University here, and he shared that story. And after he was done speaking, I walked up to him and I said, "Did your grandfather make up that story?" And he goes, "No, he used to use that story too." And it's a very powerful story. And like I mentioned, I like to use imagery. I like to use imagery for people to, to react. For example, we have seen, I would imagine all of us have seen, those images of these unethical smugglers that drop two children in the middle of the desert with maybe a note attached to them or something, hoping that the Border Patrol will find them and bring them to the Border Patrol station and then connect them with their family or something. Well, yeah, but what if a wild animal finds them? What if a bad person out there finds them? And that has happened. That has happened. I think that the image of the children is something so important. And I've always focused on that. As a matter of fact, I'm adding some more pictures to our website to bring that point home. People in the United States, like people all over the world, in essence, are good. There's some bad decisions and so forth, but like just in Russia, it's not the Russian people. It's in their case, it's Vladimir Putin, their president. So it's not necessarily the Russian people, just like here or in Mexico or wherever. If you have the wrong person kind of guiding the ship, it can cause a lot of damage, because just as the power of one can do so much good. I was talking a little earlier today to my good friend Dolores Huerta, who's coming to San Diego. We're setting up her visit on December 4th. On May 4th, 4 de Mayo. So we're setting up she's being invited by Mecha. And we're helping them with some things. We're going to present like a mural and stuff like that. But here's a woman, 92 years old. She was the co-founder of United Farm Workers with Cesar Chavez, but she doesn't get the same amount of attention as Cesar Chavez, the co-founder of United Farm Workers, for the simple reason that she's a woman. She should be getting the same amount of attention, if not more. So I've always tried to bring that point home. As a matter of fact, one of the murals that I have behind me, in it, Dolores Huerta's in it. And so this one's going to be a mural dedicated to Dolores Huerta. So it's important that we practice what we preach, that we put love into action, not just into words. And that's one of the things that I always like to promote. One of the questions I had been asked was about citizenship. I can assure you, and I've been doing this work for almost 40 years on the desert and all that. Out of the desert, a little less, because before the wall, people weren't dying out in the desert. It was very rare. I can assure you that in the thousands of people that I have come across, whether I've seen them when they're crossing or about to cross or have just crossed, not one has ever said, "I want to be a U.S. citizen." They're not coming here to be U.S. citizens. As a matter of fact, most of them have no desire to be U.S. citizens, but they would like to be residents. They would like to have some sort of protection. And I've talked to people in the movement, and I'll say, don't be pushing that so hard about them becoming citizens. Maybe eventually, but that's going to get a lot of people against you. Oh my God, they're going to become citizens. They're going to vote one way. So I go, why would you put that roadblock up there? What they want is not being citizens. They want to be residents. They just want to have that green card that allows them to come out of the shadows. So they don't have to be out there, hiding all the time. Oh my God, I'm undocumented, and so on and so forth. And it's been a tough battle. There's people that don't agree with me. That's fine. When people don't agree with somebody, that's human nature. But make sure you know the facts. Get out there. One of the things that's happening a lot, and to people like me, especially somebody like me, I'm older, high profile, and all this. You're going to get attacked. Even people on your own side. Oh my God, Enrique did this, Enrique did that, and I'll say, really? I'll go, could you please have somebody that supposedly I did that to? I'd like to debate. I'd like to find out what it was that I supposedly did. One of the things that happens is, it's easy to send all these crazy things, and then I'll say, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the reality. Let's talk about the support. We have with Gente Unida on our board, we have Paul Chavez, Cesar Chavez's second son. We had the woman that wrote "Real Women Have Curves." She's very active with us. Our an attorney that defended us with Proposition 187, which was the law against the migrants back in 1994. He's on our board, Peter Shea. Josefina Lopez was the woman from Real Women Have Curves. Nicole Ramos, who's with Al Otro Lado. So we've had all these different people with us and have people with us like Ari. And the thing is, we're moving forward. We're trying to make a difference. And I can't wait till the pandemic is officially over, because it's not over. I don't agree with, not having to wear masks on the planes and stuff. I have my mask. I wear masks all the time, and I think it's important. So yeah, I can't wait to be able to go to Wisconsin again. I can't wait for you to come to San Diego. When, some of you are graduating, but that doesn't mean you can't come out here, because we do a lot of different types of things. Just yesterday, I had a crew from Sacramento here. I took them to the wall on the U.S. side. I took them to where the Ukrainians are, the ones that are here in San Diego. I took them to a place where there's a lot of undocumented people here in San Diego from Latin America. And then today she went with one of our partners. They went to Tijuana, and they were led by another person that works with us. Her name is Maria Galleta, but we affectionately call her Mary Cookie, because galleta in Spanish means cookie. So we call her Mary Cookie. So anyways, yeah, so we're always doing a lot of different type of stuff, and there's nothing like having you come out here and bring in a group. And I'll be looking forward to doing that in the future. We've got a lot of things that I don't have one. I'm kind of surprised I didn't bring one, but we have T-shirts. El amor no tiene fronteras, love has no borders. So we have a lot of things to help raise funds and raise money. And for us, it's we're a volunteer group. We go to the shelters on both sides of the border. We work with all of the communities. We're very supportive. I truly believe in diversity. My old girlfriend that I was with for a few years, she's from Acapulco, which is in Mexico, and she's Muslim. So here you have a Catholic and a Muslim, a very liberal Catholic. Like, I believe in gay marriage and women priests and all that kind of stuff. But so we're a faith-based group. We're not a religious group. And it's important that we make a difference. If you really believe in human rights, a lot of you are involved in law and so forth. You're the generation that I have hope in. You're the generation, because my generation, we did a terrible job. Yes, of course, there's the icons that have done that are incredible, like Dolores Huerta. But in general, I think we've done a terrible job. And I have hope in your generation that you're going to steer us in the right direction. But we want to help. We want to help and take the lead from you guys. So that's why I'm so delighted to be with all of you. And on my watch, I think I've spoken almost 35 minutes or whatever. And I'm all yours. So if you have questions, comments, observations, I welcome those. I welcome those. And we still have a podcast and all this type of stuff. I'm starting a new podcast now, and I've had several: Bad Hombre, Buen Mujer, Magnificent Mujer, Morones por la Tarde. The new one, we're still working on it, but I'm a huge fan of Larry David, and he's got a show called Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know if you've heard about it. He's the guy that created Seinfeld. Well, on my podcast, we're thinking about calling it Curb Your Activism. Curb Your Activism, because even though we deal with real serious issues, I like to tell, share stories and let people, so like the kids dancing, let them relax for a little bit, and then I'll tell them, some things that happen when you're an activist, things that happen that, are light and so on and so forth. But I take the issue, of course, very, very serious. And the last speech I gave before the pandemic was at an all-women's college in Los Angeles. This was in 2020. I had already been with Gente Unida as the executive director for about 5 months. And I was at Mount St. Mary's College in Los Angeles, an all-women's college. And I'm telling a real sad story. And all of a sudden I hear the door open in the back, and I look up to see who it is that's coming in. And it was George Costanza from Seinfeld, Jason Alexander. So I'm thinking, oh, there's George Costanza. Because I looked at him as the character from Seinfeld, right? And I love that character. And I said, and it was very distracting because I think he's really funny. So after I was done speaking, people came up and they wanted to talk about personal things, and I had to keep it real serious. When he came up, I said, do you have a daughter that goes? It's an all-girls college. Do you have a daughter that goes to school here or something? He goes, no. He said he had heard I was going to be there, and that's why I was there. And I was dying to ask him about Seinfeld, but I knew if I did, everybody would talk to him about Seinfeld. So I just kept it serious about the work and how we could all make a difference. So you all make a difference, and I really appreciate the opportunity of being able to speak to you all again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you've had to say. It's been fascinating. So yeah, we'll open up this time now until 8:30 for question and answers, a little discussion time. And a reminder, everybody listening, you can send those through the Q&A portion on the bottom of your screen. So as we wait for those to come in, we'll start with some questions from our Student Advisory Board.
I see that there's one a question in the QA. Do you want me just to read it, Peyton?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
So anonymous attendee says, I just want to note that the report on the whipping of the Haitians is not necessarily true. The report about it is supposed to come out soon, but most of the outcry is based on those few images which contradict other eyewitnesses' accounts.
Yeah, so that's a good question. What happened was on the U.S. Mexican border, as I mentioned, is about 2,000 miles, and there's 10 states along the border. 4 on the U.S. side: California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and then there's 6 on the Mexican side. Well, the Texas portion is the overwhelming majority of the border, right, on the Mexican-U.S. border. And where that incident took place is called Del Rio. I've been there. I've been along the entire border on both sides. And what happened was, that definitely is true. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I have been there. I have spoken to people that have been there, that witnessed it. Have spoken to people in the Haitian community, and it really happened. And what it was the Border Patrol on horseback. And one of the things that Mayorkas said, who's one of the secretaries under the Biden administration, and I was furious when I heard him say this. Oh no, they weren't whips. They weren't being whipped with whips. They were being hit with the reins of the horse. What they used to ride the horse. That strap thing. And I said, once again, give me that image. I go, I can guarantee you that somebody that's been whipped, and I've never been whipped, but nobody's going to say, oh, that wasn't a whip. That was the rein of a horse. Oh, okay, that's okay. You could whip me with the rein of a horse. They were being whipped. They were being whipped. They were being terrorized. And then I said, and that there's pictures and videos and all that. Then I said, I think I told you guys earlier, there's no way I could imagine that happening to Ukrainians. I just can't imagine that same situation where the Ukrainians are on the Mexican side. They try to cross because they're not being allowed to get in a line for asylum. So they try to cross to the river. Even though you have the Rio Bravo there, there's along the Rio Bravo, there's areas where it's not very deep. You can walk straight across, and maybe water up to your knees or something, and or they'll come on an inner tube and all that. So yeah, that was horrific. It was absolutely horrific, and once again, it's the racism that we see worldwide, especially towards people that are darker skinned. In the case of the Haitians, they're black, and it was wrong. It was horrible. I just can't fathom that. I couldn't believe that I was watching that taking place right now under this administration and in real time. Yeah, that happened.
Thank you for that one. The next question we have here is from Brian Smith. He's asking, do you think that the U.S. government is prepared for May 23rd?
Oh, that's a really great question. So on May 23rd, that's the date that Title 42 is supposed to end. And it's been announced. And then, like I said, I'll believe it when I see it, because we've heard promises from both sides of the aisle that they don't keep. And where they're saying, they're already kind of warming up the people that of why it's not going to be able to happen the way that they're portraying it, because we're not ready for it. We don't have enough people working in Customs and Border Patrol. We don't have enough asylum judges, and so on and so forth. So when they say they're not ready for it and there's not enough room in the United States, then I say, when the Ukrainians were invaded by Russia and more than 4 million have left the Ukraine, many of them coming towards the United States. The United States wasn't ready for them. Nobody knew they were coming. Yet they're allowed to come in. So for them, they're allowed to come in. They don't talk about COVID with them. They're as likely to have COVID as anybody else. But they're allowed to come in, and they're allowed to get asylum. It's an organized process. They're being welcomed by both Mexico and the United States. And I'm glad they're being welcomed, but how about everybody else? So now that Title 42 is coming to an end, the people that are suffering are not Ukrainians. They're people from other parts of the world. And I can guarantee you, I'll guarantee you right now that they're not going to be allowing, they'll allow a few. That way they can say, oh yeah, we're trying. What do you mean trying? With the Ukrainians, you're basically allowing them all in. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people crossing from Mexico to the United States that are Ukrainians. And I'm so glad they are. But let's let the other people in too. And then when people say, oh yeah, but those other countries aren't at war. And I go, when your community is being terrorized in a little village in El Salvador, like just happened yesterday, and 38 people are killed, that's a war. That's a war. Maybe the El Salvador and what other country is not officially at war. Sometimes it's an internal war, organized crime, the so on and so forth, the gangs. Well, in the case of El Salvador, that the reason that started in El Salvador was U.S. policies towards El Salvador. So U.S. has a big role in what goes on in Central America, Mexico. I recommend that you look up a movie that talks about those types of situations with Central America, Latin America in general, and it's called Harvest of Empire. You can easily find it, Harvest of Empire. And the guy that did the movie is the sidekick of the woman that does Democracy Now, Juan Gonzalez. His name is Juan Gonzalez. And it's brilliant. It's called Harvest of Empire, and it talks about that type of situation. And it was done like 10 years ago. Pretty much everything that he's saying is still going on right now. So the U.S. should be ready. They've had plenty of warning. They knew that it was going to come to an end sometime. So it's not like a surprise that it's coming to an end. They've always known that. And have they ramped it up? Have they gotten ready? No. And it's sad because these people have been waiting for a long time.
Thank you. Maite, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so Gabriel asks, do you think that people who just want a green card have other implications behind it, such as not wanting to vote or any other portions of being the United States citizen? He says, I personally did not know that many people just wanted residency.
Right. Yeah. So I think that a lot of people will say, including some of the dreamers, oh yeah, I want citizenship. Yeah, they have every right to want that. But what I'm saying is that, remember, the dreamers came here when they were younger. So these aren't the people that I've seen crossing the border. Maybe their parents. So when the people are crossing the border because they're escaping economic disaster in their homeland or violence or the ecology, a fear of having their family being killed, etc. So they're escaping that. And but they're not escaping it to become citizens of another country, not only the US, but another country in general. It's because they want to be able to come to that country and be safe, have a life. I was speaking at a synagogue before the pandemic, and so it's all these Jewish people, and this woman came up to me and said, I saw you on CNN the other day, and I cannot understand why these people are coming here, these children are coming here without their parents. How is it possible that the parents let the children go? That's what happened with Adi, my friend from Iran. Her parents allowed her to come here by herself, because had she stayed in Iran, she probably wouldn't be alive today. Well, so the Jewish woman, I said, that really surprises me that you're saying that as a Jewish woman. You know the story of Moses better than I do. And then she's looking at me and I go, so when Moses was put in the basket by his mom to float down the river, she didn't know if he was going to live or not. But if she doesn't put him in the basket, he dies. So that was her hope, that he would be found by somebody and live. And I go, that's what these children's, the parents are doing now with these children. She said, I never thought of that. So when I say that the people and look at it, you've never heard, even when you're watching on the news and all this kind of stuff, you never hear people saying, I want to be a US citizen. You know, there's always exceptions, of course, but I mean, I've never, ever heard one person say that, you know, that's in that situation. They're crossing, and even the Ukrainians today, the Ukrainians will tell you they want to go back to Ukraine eventually. You know, who wants to leave their homeland? They want to go back to Ukraine. That's their dream. Now, maybe that will change, like my parents. My parents came here from Mexico almost 70 years ago. My mom didn't want to leave Mexico. My older brother and sister didn't want to leave Mexico. My dad came here because he had an excellent job opportunity where he would make 3 times the amount of money he was making. And there was no suffering there. He was able to get a visa and come. And the family came. And then I was born in San Diego. So he, you know, God bless him and he rest in peace. He passed away 8 years ago. His goal was just to be here temporarily. Well, we never left. You know, my mom is just turned 94 years old. She's with us still today. So yeah, the idea was to return. So a lot of people, that's their idea, including your families. Maybe not your generation, but maybe 2 or 3 generations ago. One of my meetings with President Obama, I remember he said to me, Enrique, don't forget, before we were us as a people, we were them. We're talking about the day laborers, the guys looking for work. And I go, President Obama, with all due respect, your situation is a little different because your dad came from Kenya. He doesn't have the history of being brought here as a slave trade and so forth. And then your mom's from Kansas. So in your situation, it's a little different. But the African community in general, brought here by force. The Mexican community, their country was taken by force. The Native American community, their land was taken. So all of those people, they're not migrants. But the ones, the 55% or so that have the European background, you know, they came through Ellis Island and everybody essentially got through. Ellis Island was not a place to return people. 98% of the people that came through there, come on in. So these people are coming here because they want a life, not because they want to become citizens. And I wonder if that question was for my friend that's I think he's a veteran. He's a veteran and he sent me some messages. I don't know if that was him or not, but thank you for your service. Although I'm a pacifist. Drop my watch.
So another question from Carol. Do you see any reform of immigration when you have opportunists like Governor Abbott taking political advantage along the Texas border? I probably butchered that.
Yeah, Governor Abbott in Texas, he's he's really crazy. He's the guy that, being the governor of the biggest border state, oh yeah, there's an invasion and all this kind of stuff. There's no invasion. So what he did was he said, the wall, if we don't have the wall only covers 1/3 of the U.S. Mexican border. And the people that are here undocumented in the United States, most of them didn't cross, around the wall. Most of them got some sort of a visa that expired and never left. That's how most of them are here. Most of the undocumented people in the country today are people that crossed, they were able to get some sort of a visa a while ago, and they were supposed to leave and they never left. So the wall doesn't affect them. So what Governor Abbott has done is he said, oh yeah, there's an invasion. And in order to let Biden know, in his words, he says, I'm going to take those people that we're catching and we're going to put them on buses and drop them off in front of the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. So that was his second stunt. The first stunt was to stop the traffic of the cars, the trucks that were coming in with cargo into the United States, saying, no, we need to check all the trucks. Well, he got a lot of pressure from his own constituents, including Republicans, saying, you're freezing the economy. You got to let these trucks go. Let them come in. And he was using the excuse, oh, I saved so many lives because these trucks weren't safe. You need to have certain standards to come into the country. So the trucks were safe. So that was a lie. Now with the buses where he sent people to Washington, D.C., he ended up sending, I know of 3 buses that he sent. And I think with the 3 buses, he had a total of 100 people, like 30 here, 40 here, et cetera. And yeah, he dropped them off, and there was agencies in Washington, D.C., human rights agencies, that welcomed those people and said, okay, well, thanks for bringing them here. You know, we'll see what we can do and help them out. Those are stunts. Like the question, those are stunts. And even though we have people like that, you have him, you have DeSantis in Florida. So you have people like that, but I hope that the people get out there and vote, and that, you know, that we can keep people in office that are really conscientious of what's better for the world than people that are just saying, I want to be reelected. I don't care if I spread the politics of fear. That is really sad. That is really sad. When I was young, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I don't have a party. But when I was young, I remember seeing a Republican and a Democrat. They didn't get along. They would argue, but then you'd see them going out to dinner together. They'd argue because they didn't agree on policies. They weren't attacking each other like they do now. Like, one of the worst examples of racism that I've seen was the confirmation of the latest Supreme Court justice. You know, we saw that, and some of these Republicans, the things that they were saying and so forth, that was pure racism. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I'm glad that she was confirmed to the Supreme Court, but we got to get away from that, from this politics of, you know, only being in your own corner and listening to your own side that you agree with. We got to get away from that. When I was young, we didn't have MSNBC and Fox News. All you had was ABC, CBS, and NBC, and those were news stations. You never would have the newscasters say an opinion. Of course, they had opinions, but they wouldn't say it. They would just tell you the news. Well, now it's it's hard to see that. Now it's like all opinion. So if you don't agree with that opinion, you won't watch that. You'll only watch the opinions that you want to agree with, as crazy as it may be. So yeah, we got to get away from that.
All right, so we're just about at our time limit here, but we have one more message here. I see it's not popping up, from Maria, who you mentioned is a friend of yours. So I
Yes.
thought it would be a nice little way to end, because it's a great message. She says, gracias, Enrique, and welcome back to Ripon College. We are here supporting you today from the Center for Diversity and Inclusion at Ripon College. Your humanity and work for issues that are impacting migrant and immigrant communities reminds us that there is still a lot of work to do in order to advocate for humane immigration reform for all in the United States. Gracias.
Well, thank you very much, Maria, and also your husband, Edgar. They're perfect examples of the starfish, the work that they do, and that a lot of people do, including you, Peyton. Is sometimes you don't realize how many people you're influencing. Sometimes you don't realize it. Like, that happened to me when I was younger, and then but you do influence people, and many times you'll never hear from them. An immigration attorney, or I decided to become a nurse practitioner, and so on and so forth. And it was simply because they heard one of the messages that I tried to deliver. And the most important thing is service leadership, leading by example. So somebody will say, like I did, like when I saw people, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Martin Luther King. I never met Martin Luther King, but some of those principles, I go, yeah, leadership by example. I like what so and so is doing. Gandhi, I like what what he did, and so on and so forth. And it's leadership by example. You don't remember people that just talk. You remember people that act, and that's what I try to do. So, yeah. So I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you very much to your entire executive team, all the students, and so on and so forth. And I'm always available, so you can always email me. I'm old-fashioned.
Okay, I think my computer froze a little bit there. Just wanted to say, as we wrap up here, on behalf of the Student Advisory Board, I wanted to thank everybody for being here today, and for you, Enrique, in particular, for all of the incredible thoughts you had to share with us tonight. So, of course, this is a constantly evolving issue, and you've provided our community with some really incredible insight as we move forward. Like I mentioned earlier, this webinar is also recorded and will be able to watch and share on the Ripon College YouTube channel probably sometime tomorrow. And then this is the last event that will be hosted by our Student Advisory Board for this academic year, and we hope to host more great events like this in the future. So thanks again to everybody who helped out. Good night.
Thank you very much. Don't forget to vote.